Samuel was unlike any other child in the settlement. He possessed an innate understanding of things that no one had ever taught him, shown him, or explained. With remarkable skill, he could construct just about anything he desired, be it a rocking chair, a sturdy kitchen table, side tables, or bed frames. In the year 1880 in the rustic Hollow Creek County, Wyoming, Samuel lived with his parents, Mary and John Hunter. As their only child, he often felt a sense of isolation. At the young age of 14, Samuel had come to know secrets that lay unspoken. He sensed that John was not his biological father. Neither Mary nor John had ever revealed the truth about his real father. As the first snow melted away, Mary and John decided it was time for Samuel to leave the cabin and learn to fend for himself. They believed it was the best course of action for everyone involved. On a Sunday, March 1, 1880, Samuel returned home from church. His parents, who were devout believers, had chosen not to attend that day. Upon arriving, he noticed a box on the front porch and a note pinned to the cabin door. As he approached, a mix of curiosity and dread filled him. The box contained his belongings: a few cherished books, a warm jacket, a wool blanket, salt pork, a small bag of flour, beans, oats, and other standard staples. Samuel set the food against the cabin's outer wall, his heart heavy with uncertainty. He tore the note from the door and read it carefully. It said, "Samuel, John and I have been discussing the food portions, and we've realized that your staying here will strain our supplies. Please understand, son. Love, Mary." The use of her name instead of Mom cut deeply. What did it signify when a parent chose to sign their name rather than a familial title? Feeling the weight of his parents' decision, Samuel picked up the box, leaving the food behind since he believed he was the reason for their dwindling nutrition. With nowhere to go, Samuel felt the same solitude his parents had known as only children. He sought refuge in a secluded spot where he often went to think, an isolated cliff overlooking a serene lake. Here, he could contemplate life's challenges without the intrusion of others. As he settled onto the rocky edge, he pulled out a notepad from the box and began to make a list of essentials for survival: logs, nails, tools, mortar, stones, and water. He noted items to buy: an axe, more nails, a chisel, seeds, and buckets. Determined, Samuel made his way to the trading market, spending most of his saved money. He purchased an axe for $3, a tin can of nails for $1, and 4 buckets for $0.50 each. He also bought seeds for wheat, corn, tomatoes, potatoes, and turnips, totaling $3. In all, he spent $9 of the $100 he had earned through odd jobs. With his new axe in hand, Samuel ventured into the nearby woods, cutting down trees that stood about 10 feet tall and measuring 15 inches in diameter. He felled 3 trees in just 1 hour, and with 7 hours of daylight remaining, he realized he could potentially cut down 21 trees by sunset. That night he made a bed from his wool blanket, using his jacket for warmth. He rose before dawn, working diligently to strip the bark from the trees, cutting them into various lengths for the foundation, framing, windows, and doors. After 3 hours of hard labor, he meticulously measured and cut the wood according to the plans he had sketched out. Remembering the adage, "Measure twice, cut once," he took his time. By the end of the day, he had successfully constructed the foundation and begun framing part of his new home. The next morning, Samuel awoke to a dull ache in his stomach, a reminder of his empty belly. He knew it wouldn't be long before it began to growl, and sure enough, it did, an embarrassing reminder of his need for food. Clutching his abdomen, he scanned his surroundings and spotted a bamboo plant. With determination, he chopped it down, its fibrous body yielding easily to his efforts. Using fishing line, he securely tied it to the bamboo stick, fashioning a makeshift fishing rod. He then took a piece of wire, bending it with care, and affixed one end to the fishing line. With his improvised fishing gear in hand, he made his way to the shore of the lake, the cool water lapping at his feet as he waded in. Kneeling down, he plunged his hand into the water, feeling the soft sand beneath. After a few moments of searching, his fingers brushed against something hard. He pulled out one clam, then another, and soon had 4 in total. With the corner of his chisel, he pried them open, the shells cracking with a satisfying sound. Once they were free, he carefully threaded them onto the wire. Casting his line into the water, he settled in for the wait. An hour passed, and just as he began to lose hope, he felt a tug on the line. He paused, letting the fish take the bait before feeling another tug. With adrenaline surging through him, he pulled the fishing line hand over hand. Emerging from the water was a hefty catfish, its scales glistening in the sunlight. He quickly removed the hook and placed the fish in a bucket of water he had set aside. After casting his line again, he waited patiently for another bite. 45 minutes later, he felt another tug. This time, the fish was a fierce fighter, battling him every inch of the way. 10 grueling minutes later, he finally pulled a massive fish out of the water. As he examined it, he marveled at its size and shape. "I think it's a lake sturgeon," he whispered to no one. The fish stretched an impressive 5 feet in length and weighed a staggering 145 pounds. He laid the sturgeon on a sturdy table he had built specifically for this purpose. After gutting the fish, he discovered it was female and carefully stored the eggs in a glass jar. With plans to build a smoker for preservation, he also realized he needed to finish his cabin. It was March 4, 1880, and Samuel had the framework of his cabin partially complete. He decided to build the smoker first, using limestone and clay. It took 2 days for it to dry, and when finished, it stood 5 feet high, 3 feet wide, and 6 feet deep. While the smoker cured, Samuel devoted his time to completing the cabin. By the end of the day, he had finished the entire frame. That evening, he cooked the catfish, savoring it alongside some salt pork and beans, a satisfying meal after a long day of labor. The next morning, Samuel rose at dawn, eager to check on the smoker. It was nearly dry, and he immediately set to work on the cabin walls. He gathered flat stones of various sizes, mixing limestone and clay to create mortar. He meticulously applied the mortar to the stones on the north side of the cabin, completing that wall by the end of the day. The east wall followed, with Samuel ensuring the corners were cut in the traditional manner that all homesteaders used. By March 8, 1880, Samuel had constructed a functional smoker and a sturdy cabin with only the roof left to complete. By the second week, on March 15, he had successfully added the cabin roof, installed glass windows he had ordered from Denver, and hung the cabin door on its hinges. By April 1, 1880, Samuel stood inside his finished cabin, a stone chimney already lit. Smoke curled up through the chimney, bringing warmth into the space, which was larger than a standard cabin, measuring 12 by 14 feet. He then turned his attention to building a root cellar about 10 feet from the east side of his cabin. He dug a chamber 5 feet wide and 10 feet deep, with stairs leading down into the cool earth. He made sure there was enough height so he could stand without hunching over. Inside, he constructed 4 distinct chambers, one for dry foods like flour, beans, oats, corn, and wheat, another for preserves and dried smoked meat, the third for his small livestock, which included 12 chickens, 2 goats, and 2 sheep, and the 4th chamber served as an underground garden, allowing him to cultivate crops while his wheat and corn thrived above ground. Meanwhile, back at the cabin of Mary and John Hunter, a sense of unease hung in the air. They stared at the dry foods they had placed in Samuel's box, both wearing expressions of worry that spoke volumes. Why hadn't he taken the food? What would he eat? I think this was a bad idea, Mary said softly, resting her head against John's chest, seeking comfort in his presence. John wrapped his arms around her gently, trying to convey his strength and resolve. He'll manage, he reassured her. Have you seen the things he built in the shed out back? Mary looked up, confusion etched on her face. What are you talking about? What has he made? John noticed the flicker of concern in her eyes. It was evident she hadn't seen what Samuel had created. Taking her hand, he led her to the shed behind their cabin. As he opened the door, he lit the lantern inside, illuminating the space with a warm glow. When Mary stepped inside, her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes widening in disbelief. John gestured proudly toward the stunning pieces of furniture he had crafted. Rocking chairs and a dining table adorned with intricate designs that resembled furniture fit for royalty. They were beautifully finished and radiated a sense of craftsmanship that left her speechless. What do you want to do with them? John asked, his eyes sparkling with possibilities. I don't know, Mary admitted, her brow furrowed in thought. We need to find Samuel and see what he wants. John considered her words, then said, Mary, we could sell them. Mary's eyes lit up momentarily, but doubt crept back in. What if someone wants another piece of furniture or a table for another royal family? The next morning, determined and anxious, Mary set out to find her son. She made her way to the trading market and approached Mr. Blackwood, the owner, with a heavy heart. Have you seen my son Samuel lately? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Blackwood looked at her with a mix of confusion and concern. What's wrong, Mrs. Hunter? Mary glanced down as if the ground held the answers she sought. My husband and I made him leave on March 1st, and I need to locate him. Well, Mrs. Hunter, Mr. Blackwood said, his tone firm yet sympathetic, I can go to him tomorrow morning and deliver your message. But I won't disclose his location, not even to you, his mother, who put him out to survive on his own. The following morning, Mr. Blackwood packed his saddlebag with supplies to bring to Samuel, along with Mary's message. It took him an entire day to reach Samuel's homestead, arriving on April 4th. Samuel heard him before he saw him. The sound of hooves crunching against the gravel drew his attention. He set down his spade and shielded his eyes from the bright sun, recognizing Mr. Blackwood dismounting from his gray gelding. Morning, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Blackwood called out, stepping toward him. Morning, Mr. Blackwood, Samuel replied, wiping the sweat from his brow and taking in the sight of his visitor. You've done a lot of work here, Mr. Blackwood remarked, surveying the impressive structures Samuel had built. A cozy cabin, a smoking shed, a root cellar, and a barn complete with a corral. Inside the corral stood a chestnut mare, her coat shining in the sunlight. I have a message from your mother, Mr. Blackwood continued, his demeanor shifting slightly. Samuel looked up, curiosity piqued. She came to you for what? Mr. Blackwood hesitated for a moment before replying. She wants to know what you'd like to do with the things you made in the shed. Do you want them delivered to you, or would you prefer to pick them up yourself? Perhaps you want to sell them or even discard them. The weight of the decision hung in the air, and Samuel felt a mix of emotions swirling within him as he pondered his options. Samuel's mind raced. Selling the furniture would provide him with some much-needed funds, but he also knew his parents might take a cut of the profits. He worried they might misrepresent the quality of his work to potential buyers. If I have my parents sell them, they might want a fee for selling my junk, he said with a hint of bitterness. And who knows what price they'd tell me it sold for. After Mr. Blackwood left, Samuel spent the rest of the day contemplating his options. He decided he would prefer to keep the furniture for himself, perhaps even using it to attract visitors or travelers passing through. So he resolved to keep the items for now. Days turned into weeks, and soon Samuel found himself welcoming some visitors to his homestead. One afternoon, a grizzled man named Aaron arrived, his face weathered by the sun and time. He looked around, taking in the lush greenery surrounding Samuel's property. This land's no good, Aaron said dismissively, his voice gruff. Nothing will grow here, you're wasting your time. Samuel raised an eyebrow, surprised by the man's boldness. If nothing can grow here, is it both of our imaginations that we see the green life around us, the trees, the plants? He gestured to the vibrant flora surrounding him. If nothing can grow here, how did all this life come to be? Aaron scoffed. It's just luck, kid, you're going to find out the hard way. When winter comes, this place will be barren. Samuel squared his shoulders, standing firm. This land has been here long before I was born, and you for that matter. Now that I've made it a home, you want it. Why, if nothing can grow here, what do you know? The encounter left Samuel unsettled, but he refused to let Aaron's words shake his determination. Days later, Aaron returned, this time with a proposition. I've been thinking about your land, he said, a calculating glint in his eyes. I'd like to make you a generous offer for it. Samuel felt a surge of indignation. Generous. You just told me it's worthless. Why the sudden interest? Aaron shrugged, his demeanor shifting to one of feigned sincerity. People change their minds, young man. You've put a lot of work into this place. I can see that. I'll offer you a good price for it. Samuel considered the situation carefully. This land has history, it has roots. I won't sell it to someone who thinks it's worthless. I've nurtured it and it's nurtured me. If you want to buy land, find someone else. Aaron's expression darkened, but Samuel stood his ground resolute. I'll not be swayed by empty promises. This land is my home and I intend to keep it. As Aaron walked away, Samuel felt a surge of pride. He had chosen to believe in his home, in the life he was cultivating, regardless of others' doubts. He knew that with hard work, he could turn the land into a thriving oasis, and that was a dream worth fighting for. By June 3, 1880, in the Wyoming Territory, Samuel had expanded his cabin, adding a second floor that soared gracefully above the first. The lower level of the cabin featured a sturdy table for meals, a hearth with a rustic stone chimney that resembled a riverbed, and a cozy loft nestled on the west side. A polished wooden banister led up a staircase to the loft, where Samuel had cleverly created an opening in the ceiling to allow light to flood the space. On the second level, he installed a wood-burning stove, its flat surface perfect for cooking. Adjacent to this was a small room designated for dry goods and storage for tools, a space Samuel affectionately referred to as his kitchen area. To address his sanitation needs, he built an outhouse about 30 yards away, with a deep hole measuring approximately 5 feet. Samuel also constructed a small shed, 5 feet wide and 7 feet high, which housed a makeshift sink crafted from a plastic tub. Ingeniously, he utilized materials he found discarded by others, digging a ditch to lay down pipes that transported water to the sink. He lined the ditch with flat stones and covered it with dirt, leading it to a water reservoir he had created, complete with a rudimentary filtration system to clean the water after use. A well nearby supplied the fresh water for this whole setup. While he didn't have specific names for these inventions, he was always ready to explain their functions when asked. Samuel envisioned transforming his homestead into the most beautiful oasis anyone had ever seen. The already growing trees surrounded him, adding natural beauty to his vision. He began digging a hole approximately 13 feet long, with varying depths, 3 feet at one end, 4.5 feet at the center, and 7 feet at the opposite end. To create lime for the walls, he trekked a mile to break chunks from a large stone, cooking it for 8 to 14 hours until it became a thick, hot amber color. After laying a tarp in the hole, he added the lime and mixed it with water. To his delight, the lime dissolved instantly upon contact. Samuel then mixed in fresh blueberries, giving the mixture a striking blue hue. He scooped the mixture into a bucket and used his spade to spread it evenly along the length and width of the hole. Once the initial coat dried, taking just under an hour, he applied a second layer. After the final coat dried, he packed dirt into a bucket and formed stairs leading into the hole, topping the steps with the same mixture and allowing it to cure. Samuel waited an additional 12 to 24 hours before adding cold water to the hole, enriching his oasis further. To enhance this serene retreat, he added several elements. He fashioned comfortable chairs from sturdy wood, perfect for lounging by the water. Lanterns hung from trees and posts, casting a warm, welcoming glow as dusk fell. Samuel crafted long torches from branches, securing them in the ground around his homestead, illuminating the paths and creating an enchanting ambience. A few days later, a lady traveling with her sister and mother spotted the flickering lights from the road. Intrigued, they guided their horses toward the glow. As they approached the entrance to Samuel Hunter's oasis, all three women gasped in amazement. Dorothy Lane, one of the sisters, breathed out in awe. "Oh my, this is so beautiful and serene." Her mother, Windy Lane, and the other sister nodded in agreement, their eyes wide with wonder. Samuel emerged from the barn after brushing his chestnut mare, Isabel. Noticing the women dismounting from their wagon, he observed their expressions of astonishment mirrored in their eyes. Windy Lane met Samuel's gaze, her voice filled with hope. "Hi, sir. We saw your lights from the road, and after our long journey we're quite tired. Is there any chance you have room for us to sleep for the night? I can pay a good price." Samuel considered her request. "Yes, I have 4 small cottages and 2 tree houses," he replied, gesturing toward the structures. The women's eyes widened further, their mouths agape in sheer amazement at the charming accommodations. He continued, "One night in a cottage is $20. The prospect of a restful night in such a lovely setting was too tempting to resist, and the women exchanged glances of relief and excitement, grateful for the unexpected haven. "For 2 beds it's $30, Samuel explained, his voice steady. Dorothy, her curiosity piqued, asked, "How much for the treehouse, and how do we get up there?" Samuel smiled, eager to share his creation. "There's an electric lift that will take you up slowly. Once you reach the top it will stop and you can step right out. The cost is $75 for a week." "How many beds are in the treehouse?" Dorothy inquired, her eyes sparkling with interest. "It has a living area, a kitchen area, and 2 separate rooms for sleeping," he replied, watching as the women exchanged glances of amazement. Windy, the mother, turned to her daughters. "Do you want to share a cottage, or would you prefer separate rooms?" Samuel, overhearing their conversation, interjected, "Excuse me, but the treehouse has 3 beds, though it consists of 2 rooms." The sisters spun around, disbelief etched on their faces. "How is that possible?" they exclaimed in unison. Samuel chuckled softly. "Well, one room has a bed on top of the other. It's a bunk bed setup," he explained, noticing their brows furrow in skepticism. To demonstrate, he invited the 2 sisters to go up first, then he would follow with their mother. Calling the lift, they watched as it descended slowly, its mechanism humming softly. Samuel stepped inside with them, guiding them through the treehouse. As they ascended, the treetops swayed gently in the breeze, providing a sense of adventure. When they reached the top, Samuel led them into the living area, which was bathed in warm, dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves. The wooden walls were smooth to the touch, crafted from the sturdy oaks that surrounded them. He pointed out the kitchen area, complete with a small stove and a charming wooden countertop. The sisters' eyes widened in wonder as he showed them the 2 rooms. The bunk beds were made of solid oak, polished to a warm sheen. "The bottom bed has enough space to sit up without hitting your head," Samuel said proudly. Dorothy and her sister Rebecca climbed onto the beds, testing their comfort. A moment later, Rebecca asked, "If we don't stay the whole week, will you refund us for the unused days?" "Of course," Samuel replied with a reassuring smile. "I want you to feel comfortable in your stay here." Their faces lit up with excitement. The promise of a unique experience in the treehouse, coupled with the assurance of flexibility, made the decision easy. From August to November of 1880, Samuel welcomed a total of 200 guests to his now popular retreat, aptly named Hunter's Hideaway. The name reflected both his last name and the sanctuary he had created. His parents learned of his success through the local quilting circle, where news traveled quickly. Mr. Branch informed Mr. Thompson, who passed it on to Mr. Lees, who then told Mrs. Miller, and finally Mr. Blackwood shared it with Mrs. Miller. On November 1, 1880, Mrs. Hunter and her husband John embarked on a day-long journey to see what all the chatter was about. After hours of riding, they finally arrived at Hunter's Hideaway. As they approached the entrance, their jaws dropped in astonishment, eyes wide with surprise. "This is beautiful, John," Mrs. Hunter exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. "Look at the tropical birds. Look at the tree houses." John was equally amazed. He had always known Samuel was capable of building furniture and other practical items, but this was something extraordinary. As they took in the vibrant surroundings, Mary spotted Samuel engaged in conversation with one of his guests. When Samuel noticed his parents, he was taken aback to see them at his homestead. He turned fully toward them, placing his hands together in front of him and bowing gracefully. "Welcome to Hunter's Hideaway. Let me show you what I've created," he said, extending his arm invitingly. His parents followed him in awe, marveling at the beauty and exotic charm surrounding them. "How long did it take you to build all this?" Mary asked, her voice a mix of admiration and curiosity. "About 6 months," Samuel replied proudly. "Why did you build it all?" John inquired. "For weary travelers," Samuel explained. I wanted to create a place where people could rest easily. I noticed that many would stay at Mrs. Miller's house, which rents rooms by the day, but it's far less appealing than this. Plus, my rates are more competitive, just $3 a night for a lower cottage with one bed, while Mrs. Miller charges 5. For 2 beds, I charge $5, she charges 10, my amenities far exceed hers. Samuel continued, Mrs. Miller does provide dinner, but I include a complimentary breakfast with waffles, eggs, bacon, toast, juice, coffee, and fresh milk. John's eyes widened. Is all that included in every room's price or just in the treehouse? Samuel smiled. It's included in all the room rates, but dinner isn't, as most guests check out before then. I also have a refreshing water hole, he added, gesturing to a glistening pool nearby. Each cottage has its own water supply from a reservoir I built specifically for this purpose. There's also an outhouse for each cottage. Mary looked puzzled. Why not have a bathroom inside? Won't it smell? Samuel led them to the outhouse, demonstrating how it worked. Just press this lever, he instructed. John complied, and they watched in awe as water flowed through the system, carrying waste away down a hidden hole. Both Mary and John gasped, stepping back in surprise. What just happened? John asked, eyes wide. Samuel explained, I have a septic system which collects waste, while fresh water comes from a smaller reservoir I built below the bathroom. The water is sourced from the well. By the spring of 1881, Samuel Hunter's oasis, known as Hunter's Hideaway, had gained a reputation far and wide. Travelers from neighboring towns flocked to spend nights in the enchanting setting, surrounded by vibrant tropical flowers and colorful birds. The oasis featured 3 cabins, 2 charming treehouses, and Samuel's home, all nestled in a lush landscape. During this flourishing time, Samuel found a small white puppy wandering nearby, his eyes filled with loneliness and hunger. The moment their eyes met, they knew they belonged together. The puppy resembled a Jack Russell with 3 tan spots on one ear. Samuel named him Bartholomew Hunter. As the months passed, Bartholomew grew quickly, becoming a smart, independent, and loyal companion. The two were inseparable, forging a bond that brought joy to Samuel's burgeoning retreat. By the spring of 1882, Samuel had welcomed over 1,000 guests to Hunter's Hideaway, each leaving with fond memories of their stay in this extraordinary oasis. At Hunter's Hideaway, people from all over the country and neighboring states flocked to experience the oasis Samuel had created. Word of mouth spread like wildfire, igniting curiosity and drawing visitors eager to see the remarkable retreat built by a young boy. At just 14 years old, Samuel had embarked on this ambitious project, constructing cabins and treehouses to offer weary travelers a taste of paradise. Now, at 17, he had spent 3 years developing his oasis, having purchased 2 parcels of land from the local land office for a mere $25. Unlike many others bound by the 5-year waiting period of the Homestead Act, Samuel was determined to improve his land immediately. Fast forward to the year 1900 in the Wyoming Territory of Hollow Creek County. Samuel Hunter was now 24, and his loyal companion Bartholomew had reached the age of 7. Over the years, Samuel had a few girlfriends, but none of them saw him as husband material. He didn't mind the solitude. The guests who came through his oasis provided plenty of company. As Samuel matured, he recognized the need for assistance around the hideaway. He began interviewing potential farmhands from the settlement, requesting references and personally riding his horse to each one to inquire about the applicant's work ethic. Eventually, he hired a man named Aaron Zion, a 30-year-old from North Dakota who had moved to Wyoming 5 years earlier with his wife and 2 young children, a 10-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. By 1925, Samuel was 50, and Aaron Zion was 60 years old when he tragically passed away from lung fever. Shortly after, Samuel hired another young man named Samuel Martin, who had just moved from California at the age of 20. As the years rolled on, Samuel never married or had children. In 1930, he faced the heart-wrenching task of burying his parents. He had already laid to rest his beloved dog, Bartholomew Hunter, in 1907 when the loyal pup was 14 years old, interring him behind the cabin that had been their home. In 1950, Samuel Hunter was now 75. Throughout the years, he had hired numerous farmhands, outliving each one. He had witnessed the passing of Mr. Blackwood, Mrs. Miller, Mr. Thompson, and Mr. Lees, yet he continued to run his oasis with the help of a dedicated team. At any given time, he employed up to 15 people, both men and women, who cleaned cabins, maintained the landscape, and ensured that the hideaway thrived. The oasis remained a cherished destination, with guests still arriving, staying, and leaving with fond memories. Samuel Hunter lived a long and fulfilling life, passing away at the impressive age of 100. He bequeathed Hunter's Hideaway to his top farmhand, Samuel Martin. Samuel Martin, along with his children, took over the operation, continuing the legacy of the beloved oasis. They upheld the same routines and pricing that Samuel Hunter had established, ensuring that the spirit of Hunter's Hideaway remained unchanged, regardless of the world beyond its borders. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe and leave a comment below about where you were watching. I love to read them all.
I don't want to know you. You want to know me more. You don't like me. I love you. You hate me. Tell me more. You're not me, nor I am you. I'm me, unlike you. I like you, but you know I can hate you too. You stay